The rain hammered against the window like it was trying to break in, but it was nothing compared to the storm crashing through my chest when Hunter slipped under my covers that first night. His body pressed against mine, cold as the November chill seeping through the cracks in our old Seattle apartment walls, and I froze, not from the weather, but from the way his breath hitched against my neck, like he'd been holding it in for years. "Don't move," he whispered, voice rough as gravel. And in that moment, I realized the joke I'd cracked earlier about hugging him for warmth had unlocked something neither of us could ever put back. Seattle in late fall was a city that wore its gloom like a second skin. All gray skies and relentless drizzle that turned the streets into slick mirrors reflecting back your own tired face. I'd moved here 2 years ago from a dusty suburb in Spokane, chasing the hazy promise of graphic design gigs and a life that felt less like a cage. The apartment on Capitol Hill was a steal. 2 bedrooms, creaky hardwood floors, and a view of the Space Needle that looked romantic on postcards but mostly just mocked you on days like this. Rent was split 50-50 with Hunter Kane, my roommate of 6 months, a guy who'd answered my Craigslist ad with a curt email. Available immediately. No pets, no drama. Little did I know then that drama would come knocking anyway, wrapped in flannel and frostbitten silences. Hunter was the kind of handsome that hit you sideways like a punch you didn't see coming. Tall, broad-shouldered, with ink-black hair that curled at the ends when it got too long, and eyes the color of storm clouds over Puget Sound, gray-blue and impenetrable. He worked construction downtown, swinging hammers on high-rises that pierced the perpetual overcast, coming home smelling of sawdust and sweat, his forearms corded with muscle from hauling rebar all day. We didn't talk much at first. I'd nod from the kitchenette where I'd be sketching logos on my tablet, and he'd grunt something about the fridge being empty again. Our interactions were like the weather, predictable, chilly, and prone to sudden downpours. It started innocently enough, or at least that's what I told myself later, when the guilt gnawed at me like a bad hangover. The heating in our building was ancient, a wheezing beast that gave up around October, leaving the place colder than a walk-in freezer. I'd bundle up in layers, sipping coffee from a mug that said "World's Okayest Artist," while Hunter paced in his threadbare tees, arms crossed like he was daring the cold to break him first. One night, after a particularly brutal shift, he'd come in with ice crystals in his lashes. I tossed him a spare blanket from the couch. "Here, before you turn into a popsicle." He caught it mid-air, one eyebrow arching in that way that made my stomach do a weird flip. "Thanks, Noah. Didn't peg you for the nurturing type." I laughed it off, stirring my ramen. What can I say? I'm full of surprises. Next time, I'll joke about hugging you for warmth if the boiler craps out again. His lips twitched, almost a smile, but it died quick as it came. Don't tempt fate. That should have been the end of it. But fate, that sly bastard, had other plans. The next morning, I woke to the sound of the radiator clanking like it was auditioning for a horror flick, and the temperature had plummeted overnight. Frost etched the inside of my bedroom window, turning the world outside into a blurred watercolor. I burrowed deeper under my duvet, half dreaming of sun-soaked California beaches I'd never afford, when the door creaked open. At first, I thought it was the wind rattling the frame. Then I felt the mattress dip, a weight settling at the edge, and the air shifted, carrying the faint scent of pine soap and damp wool. My eyes snapped open to Hunter, silhouetted against the hallway light, his face half-shadowed, expression unreadable. He was shirtless, for God's sake, skin goose-pimpled in the chill, wearing only those gray sweatpants that hung low on his hips. "What the Hunter?" He didn't answer, just lifted the covers and slid in beside me, his body a slab of ice against my side. I jerked upright, heart slamming like I chugged an espresso. "Dude, boundaries. This isn't a group sleepover." His jaw tightened, eyes fixed on the ceiling. "Your side's warmer. And you said hug me, remember? Joking or not." I stared at him, brain scrambling for purchase. The joke. That stupid, throwaway line from last night. But this was him, all 6'2" of solid, shivering man, curling toward me like a magnet finding north. His shoulder brushed mine, and electricity crackled through the contact, sharp and undeniable. I should have shoved him out, should have laughed it off as roommate hazing. Instead, I lay there, breath shallow, watching the rise and fall of his chest, the way his lashes cast shadows on his cheeks. "Fine," I muttered finally, voice steadier than I felt. "But if you snore, you're out." He huffed a breath that might have been amusement, and slowly, tentatively, his arm draped across my waist. It was awkward at first, elbows jabbing, legs tangling like we'd forgotten how bodies worked. But then he relaxed, exhaling long and slow, and the cold seeped out of him, replaced by a heat that bloomed between us, slow as dawn breaking over the Olympics. I told myself it was just survival, body heat, nothing more. But as his breathing evened into sleep, his fingers curling loosely against my hip, I felt the lie settle heavy in my gut. That night cracked something open in us, a fissure we both pretended wasn't there. The next evening he did it again. No preamble, no explanation. Just the door opening at midnight, the bed dipping, and his body folding into mine like it belonged. "Rough day," he'd murmur, and I'd swallow the questions, letting him burrow close, his head on my shoulder, stubble scraping my collarbone. We'd lie there in the dark, the rain a constant percussion, and I'd trace idle patterns on his back with my fingertips, feeling the ridges of old scars he never talked about. Hunter Kane was a mystery wrapped in flannel, and I was the fool who wanted to unravel him thread by thread. Born and raised in a nowhere town called Ridge Valley up in the Cascades. He'd left at 18 with a duffel bag and a chip on his shoulder the size of Mount Rainier. That's all he'd let slip over late-night takeout. Pad Thai from the spot on Pike Street, where the portions were generous and the portions of his past were stingy. "Family's complicated," he'd say, eyes on his fork. "Better left in the rear view." I got it, or thought I did. My own folks were a faded Polaroid. Dad splitting when I was 10, Mom remarrying an accountant who treated me like an optional upgrade. I'd come out in high school to a chorus of awkward hugs and, "We love you anyway." But it left me with this hollow spot, like I'd apologized for existing. Seattle was supposed to fill it. Gigs, bars with rainbow flags, guys who swiped right without the baggage. But dates fizzled fast, and Hunter's presence started to eclipse them all. A gravitational pull I couldn't name. By week 2 of the crawling, it wasn't just about the cold anymore. The boiler got fixed. Some maintenance guy in overalls banging pipes for an afternoon. But Hunter kept coming. I'd pretend to be asleep when he slipped in, my pulse a traitor thundering in my ears. One night, emboldened by a beer or two, I turned to face him, our noses inches apart. "This a habit now?" His eyes searched mine in the low light, something raw flickering there. "Fear? Desire? You want me to stop?" The question hung between us, thick as fog rolling off the sound. I could have said yes, could have rebuilt the walls, kept it to nods and fridge notes. But his hand was on my chest, palm flat over my heart, and the beat under it was a confession. "No," I whispered. "Don't stop." His mouth crashed into mine then, tentative at first, like he was testing if I'd pull away. I didn't. I kissed him back, hungry and unpracticed, tasting salt and the faint bitterness of the coffee he'd chugged that morning. His stubble burned against my skin, his fingers threading into my hair, and for the first time in years, the ache in my chest eased, replaced by a fire that licked through my veins. We moved together slow, exploring, hands mapping collarbones, hips aligning in the tangle of sheets. It wasn't fireworks. It was a hearth igniting, warm and steady, chasing out the chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Afterward, he stayed, head pillowed on my arm, breath syncing with mine. "Noah," he said softly, voice stripped bare. "I haven't. This isn't easy for me." I pressed a kiss to his temple, tasting the salt of his skin. "We don't have to name it. Not yet. But names have a way of sneaking up on you, like the dawn light creeping through the blinds." In the mornings, he'd linger, coffee brewing in the kitchen while I sketched, our knees bumping under the table. We'd walk to the market on Broadway, shoulders brushing, picking out apples and sourdough, the city buzzing around us like it approved. Hunter even laughed once. A real one, low and rumbling. When I tripped over a crack in the sidewalk and blamed it on his distracting good looks. Felt like the start of something. Us. But Seattle's rains always bring storms, and ours was brewing just beyond the horizon, hidden in the mountains where Hunter's past still echoed. The first real crack showed up on a Saturday in early December, when the city dressed in twinkling lights and the air smelled of roasted chestnuts from street vendors. I'd convinced Hunter to brave the holiday market at Pike Place, a sprawl of booths hawking wreaths and mulled wine under strings of Edison bulbs. He grumbled the whole way there, hands shoved in his coat pockets, but his eyes softened when I handed him a paper cup of spiced cider. "You're turning me into a yuppie," he teased, clinking his cup against mine. "Guilty?" I shot back, grinning as we wandered past a stall of hand-carved ornaments. "Pick one. For the tree we're definitely getting." He paused, fingers hovering over a wooden carving of a lighthouse, its beam etched in tiny, precise lines. "We don't do Christmas. Not in this place." "Why not?" I nudged his arm, the contact sending that now familiar spark up my spine. "Come on, Kane. Live a little." Fake cheer never killed anyone. His jaw worked like he was chewing on words he couldn't spit out. "Last Christmas wasn't great." He bought the ornament anyway, slipping it into his pocket with a shrug. "For you, then." That night, back in the apartment, we wrestled a scrawny fur from the corner lot down the block, needles shedding like confetti. Hunter cursed under his breath as we hauled it up the stairs, but by the time we strung lights, me on a stool, him steadying my hips, his mood had thawed. We hung the lighthouse at the top, his hand brushing mine as he secured it, and when he kissed me, slow and deep against the glow of the bulbs, I tasted cider and possibility. But possibilities have shadows. The next morning, I woke to an empty bed, the sheets cool where Hunter should have been. Voices drifted from the living room, his low and edged with strain, and another higher, insistent. I padded out in my boxers, rubbing sleep from my eyes, and froze in the doorway. A woman stood there, mid-30s maybe, with sharp cheekbones and blonde hair pulled into a severe ponytail. She clutched a wool coat like a shield, her face a mask of controlled fury. "You can't just ghost me, Hunter. Not after everything." "Claire," he said, voice flat, blocking her path to the couch. "I told you. It's over. Go home." She spotted me then, eyes narrowing like I'd materialized from thin air. "And who's this? Your latest distraction?" Heat flooded my face, a mix of confusion and that old, familiar shame. Hi, I'm Noah. Roommate." Her laugh was brittle, slicing the air. "Roommate, right?" She turned back to Hunter, voice dropping to a hiss. "If you think you can run from us, you're delusional. Dad's already asking questions." Hunter's shoulders tensed, a muscle ticking in his jaw. "Tell him whatever. I don't care anymore." She lingered a beat longer, gaze raking over me like I was evidence in a crime scene, then stormed out, the door slamming like a gunshot. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the drip of the faucet in the kitchen. I crossed my arms, trying for casual. "Ex? She seems intense." He sank onto the arm of the couch, rubbing his temples. "Fiancé." Was, anyway. The word landed like a brick in my gut, heavy and immovable. "Fiancé." Past tense, sure, but the implications twisted like a knife. I leaned against the wall, piecing it together. "You were engaged? To a woman?" He looked up, eyes stormy. "Yeah, small-town bullshit. Expectations. I thought I could play along, you know? Make everyone happy." A bitter laugh escaped him. "Turns out, I'm shit at pretending." The pieces clicked. Ridge Valley, the scars on his back from a fall he never detailed, the way he flinched at mentions of family dinners. Closeted, or close enough, until Seattle's anonymity let him breathe. And me, oblivious, falling into this without a map. "Why didn't you say?" My voice came out smaller than I intended, laced with hurt I hadn't meant to show. He stood, closing the distance between us in 2 strides, hands framing my face. Because it's the first real thing I've had. I didn't want to drag the mess in here. I searched his eyes, seeing the plea there, the fear of losing what we'd barely built. It's already in here, I said softly, but I didn't pull away when he kissed me, desperate and apologetic, like he could erase the morning with touch. We spent the day pretending normalcy, decorating the tree, blasting indie folk from my playlist, Hunter's hand steady as he wrapped garland around the banister. But the ornament on the top glittered like a warning, casting fractured light across the room. That night, he crawled into bed early, pulling me close with an urgency that bordered on need. We made love with the lights still on, bodies illuminated in the warm glow, his whispers against my skin a litany of sorry and stay. Christmas Eve brought a fragile peace. We cooked. Well, I directed while he chopped onions with more force than necessary, and watched old movies on the couch, his head in my lap, my fingers carding through his hair. "This is good," he murmured during the credits of It's a Wonderful Life, voice thick. "You make it good." I bent to kiss his forehead. "We make it good. But peace in Seattle is fleeting, like a break in the clouds." The call came at dawn on Christmas Day, Hunter's phone buzzing like an angry hornet. He answered in the kitchen, voice hushed, but I caught fragments. "Claire, no, not now." When he hung up, his face was ashen, hands trembling as he gripped the counter. "Family emergency," he said, avoiding my eyes. "Gotta drive up to Ridge Valley. Dad's sick." I sat up, sheets pooling around my waist. "How long?" "A day, maybe 2. He dressed quickly, movements jerky, like he was fleeing a fire. At the door he paused, turning back. "Noah, go." I cut in, forcing a smile. "Handle it. I'll be here." He nodded, gratitude and guilt warring in his expression. And then he was gone, the apartment echoing with his absence. I spent the day sketching, the lines turning abstract, swirls of gray and blue, shapes that evoked the hollow in my chest. By evening, the tree lights felt mocking, and I crashed early, the bed too big without him. He returned late the next night, slipping in quietly, but I was awake, pretending sleep. The mattress dipped, his body curling around mine, colder than the December air. "Missed you," he breathed into my neck, arms tightening like anchors. I rolled to face him, cupping his cheek. "What happened?" His eyes shuddered. "Nothing I can't handle. Just old ghosts. We didn't make love that night." He held me instead, body rigid with unspoken weight. In the morning, he was up before me, coffee brewing, but the easy rhythm was off. His smiles forced, touches fleeting. Work pulled him away, and I buried myself in a freelance deadline. But the distance grew, a chill no body heat could touch. It culminated a week later, New Year's Eve, when the city thrummed with fireworks and false promises. We'd planned to stay in, just us, champagne from the corner store, a playlist of songs that made us feel invincible. But Hunter's phone lit up again, Claire's name flashing like a neon sign. He stared at it, thumb hovering, then answered. I watched from the couch as his face hardened, words clipped. "I'm not coming back. No, it's not about him. Damn it, Claire, let it go." He hung up, tossing the phone onto the counter with a clatter that made me wince. "Hunter, it's fine." He poured a drink, whiskey neat, downing it in one go. "She's just persistent." The lie hung there, and for the first time I pushed. "What does she want? Really?" He set the glass down too hard, amber sloshing. "To fix what isn't broken. To drag me back to that life." His voice cracked on the last word, and he turned away, shoulders heaving. I stood, crossing to him, hands on his arms. "Then stay. Fight for this." His laugh was hollow. "You think it's that simple? Ridge Valley doesn't let go easy. Family doesn't. Then tell me, I pleaded, voice breaking. All of it. Let me in. He met my gaze, eyes glistening. I was engaged to her because Dad needed a son who fit the mold. Construction legacy, church on Sundays, grandkids someday. I tried, Noah. God, I tried. But every night, I'd lie there hating myself, dreaming of this. His hand gestured between us, trembling. Of someone who sees me. Tears stung my eyes. I see you. And I want you. He kissed me then, fierce and breaking, backing me against the wall. The countdown echoed from a neighbor's TV. 10, 9. But we were lost in each other, clothes shedding like old skin. Fireworks burst outside, but ours were internal, a release of pent-up storm. Afterward, tangled on the rug, he whispered, I love you. The words landed soft, seismic. I love you too, I echoed, heart full. But love in the American dream comes with fine print, and Claire's next move would rewrite ours in blood-red ink. January in Seattle dragged like a hangover you couldn't shake, all slushy streets and skies that wept without mercy. The high from New Year's faded under the grind, Hunter's shifts stretching into overtime as the high-rises demanded more steel. My inbox a graveyard of rejected pitches. But we carved out pockets of us. Lazy Sundays with pancakes that burned at the edges, his laughter rumbling against my back as I flipped them. Evenings where he'd read aloud from dog-eared sci-fi novels, voice gravelly and captivating, my head on his thigh. Yet the shadows lingered. Claire's calls came sporadic at first, texts Hunter deleted without a word. Harmless, he'd say, deleting another. She's grasping at straws. I believed him because I wanted to, because his kisses erased the doubt, his body against mine a promise of solid ground. The betrayal hit on a Tuesday, unremarkable as dishwater. I'd come home early from a coffee run, arms laden with bagels and the latest issue of The Stranger, the free weekly that chronicled the city's underbelly. The apartment door was ajar. Hunter must have forgotten to latch it again, and I pushed in, calling, Babe? Got your favorite, everything bagels with that gross locks you. The words died in my throat. There, in the kitchen, backs to me, were Hunter and Claire. Not arguing. Not even talking. Her hands were on his chest, his on her waist, and their mouths. God, their mouths were fused in a kiss that spoke of history, of heat I'd never witnessed between them. He pulled back first, spotting me over her shoulder, face draining of color. Noah, Claire whirled, triumph flashing in her eyes before it smoothed to false concern. Oh, roommate, this isn't. Get out. My voice was steel, bagels tumbling to the floor in a soft thud. The paper crinkled underfoot, headlines blurring. She smirked, adjusting her coat. Call me when you're done playing house, Hunter. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving a vacuum. Hunter stepped forward, hands outstretched. It's not what it looks like. She showed up, cornered me. Cornered you into her mouth? The words tasted like acid, burning up my throat. I backed away, chest heaving. How long, Hunter? Since Ridge Valley? Or just whenever the itch hits? His face crumpled, hands dropping. Since the trip. Dad's sick, cancer, and she drove up, said we needed to talk. One thing led to. I was drunk, Noah. Guilty. It meant nothing. Nothing. I laughed, sharp and disbelieving. You were engaged to her. Maybe it means everything. He crossed the space, grabbing my arms. It doesn't. You do. This does. Desperation etched his features. The man who'd swung hammers without flinching now fraying at the edges. I shoved him off, the contact too raw. Then why? Why her? Because I'm scared, he admitted, voice breaking. Scared of losing the only family I have left, even if they hate who I am. Scared of this, of us being too good to last. She was safe, familiar, a way to punish myself. The confession hung, a noose tightening. Punishment. For loving me? For daring to claim a life beyond the script Ridge Valley wrote? Tears blurred my vision, hot and unwelcome. You don't punish the people you love by fucking your ex in our kitchen. I know. He sank to his knees, right there amid the spilled bagels, head bowed. I'm sorry. God, Noah. I'm so sorry. I wanted to hate him, wanted to pack his shit and change the locks, reclaim the space he'd tainted. But seeing him like that, broken, pleading, cracked my resolve. I slid down the cabinets opposite him, knees to chest, the linoleum cold against my skin. I love you, I whispered. But this, it hurts. He crawled across the gap, forehead to mine. Let me fix it, please. We stayed like that until dusk, whispering apologies and fears, the rain a mournful soundtrack. That night, he didn't crawl into my bed. I went to his, slipping under the covers where his scent still clung. We held each other. No heat, just the fragile bridge of touch. No more secrets, I murmured into his hair. No more, he vowed. But vows are paper-thin in the face of storms. February brought Hunter's father's diagnosis full force. Stage 3. The doctors said, treatable but aggressive. He drove to Ridge Valley every weekend, coming back hollow-eyed, smelling of hospital antiseptic. I'd wait with takeout and open arms, listening as he unloaded in fragments. Dad's stoic silence, Mom's prayers laced with judgment, Claire's hovering presence like a vulture in heels. You're handling it, I'd say, massaging knots from his shoulders. You're stronger than them. One night, after a particularly brutal visit, Dad had refused chemo, citing God's will. Hunter broke. We were on the couch, his head in my lap, tears soaking my jeans. He knows, he choked out. About us. Claire told him. My hands stilled. What did he say? Nothing. Just looked at me like I was a stranger. His body shook. I am, aren't I? To them. I pulled him up, cradling his face. Not to me. Never to me. We made love then. Slow and reverent. Bodies a sanctuary from the world outside. His touches were worshipful, mapping my skin like a map to salvation. And in the afterglow, he traced my collarbone with trembling fingers. Marry me, he said suddenly, voice raw. Someday, when this is over, make it real. My heart stuttered. Marriage. In this country of patchwork rights, where love still fought for scraps, it was a declaration, a middle finger to Ridge Valley. Yes, I breathed, sealing it with a kiss. Spring teased early that year, cherry blossoms unfurling along the waterfront, but our idyll cracked further. Claire's texts escalated, photos of Hunter's dad in his hospital bed, captions like, he needs his son, not a phase. Guilt gnawed at Hunter, visible in the shadows under his eyes, the way he'd stare at his phone like it held indictments. I confronted him one rainy afternoon, water sluicing down the windows like tears. Block her. For real. I can't, he admitted, slumped at the kitchen table. She's the only one who'll update me when I'm not there. Then let me come with you. Next trip. His eyes widened. To Ridge Valley? Noah, it's not safe. For who? Me or you? Both. He stood, pacing. They don't know you. Don't want to. The words stung, a reminder of the chasm between our worlds. But I know you, and I want to. He relented, and the drive east was a tense unraveling. Highways cutting through evergreens, radio static filling the silences. Ridge Valley emerged like a sepia postcard. Clabbered houses, a single stoplight, the church steeple piercing the sky. Hunter's family home was a rancher on the outskirts, porch sagging under the weight of potted geraniums. His parents met us at the door. Mom, frail and bird-like with pinned curls, eyes red-rimmed. Dad, gaunt in his recliner, oxygen tube snaking to his nose. Introductions were clipped. This is Noah, my partner. Mom's smile was a rictus. Partner, like in business. Dad grunted, gaze fixed on the TV. Claire lounged in the corner, legs crossed, a glass of iced tea sweating in her hand. Charming, she drawled. Dinner was a minefield. Roast chicken congealing on plates. Conversation skirting the elephant of Hunter's lifestyle. I kept my head down, forks scraping porcelain, until Dad rasped, "Heard you build things, boy. Real work." Hunter's hand found mine under the table, squeezing. Noah Designs, apps, websites, keeps the world connected. Dad snorted. Screens, not hands. The barb landed, but I held steady. Hands build the tools, sir. Someone's gotta dream 'em up. Claire's laugh tinkled. Dreams. How quaint. The evening fractured after that. Mom pulling Hunter aside for whispers, Dad retreating to his room. Claire cornered me by the sink, sponge in hand. "You think you're saving him? He's gonna break your heart. And mine." I met her stare, water dripping from the faucet like a metronome. "He already broke yours. By choosing himself." Her eyes flashed. "He'll choose family. Always does." She wasn't wrong. That night, in the guest room, Hunter tossed fitfully, murmuring in sleep. Come morning, he was gone. Slipped out to Dad's room for a private talk. I found him later by the barn, hay-dusted boots kicking dirt, face streaked with sweat. "He asked me to end it," he said without preamble. "With you, to come home, make things right." My stomach plummeted. "And?" I said no. He pulled me close, fierce. "But it cost me." He cut me off. "No more visits." Relief warred with sorrow. "I'm sorry. Don't be." His kiss was salt and resolve. "This is freedom." We drove back under clearing skies, the Olympics rising like sentinels. But Claire's words echoed, a seed of doubt taking root. Summer crashed into Seattle like a fever dream, sun scorching the pavement, ferries cutting wakes on the sound under relentless blue. Our apartment transformed. Windows thrown wide, fans whirring, Hunter's construction 10 deepening to gold. The betrayal lingered like a bruise, tender but fading under the salve of routine. We'd hike Discovery Park on weekends, hands linked on trails lined with salal, his laughter echoing when I'd slip on mossy rocks. "My hero," I'd quip, and he'd hoist me up, mouths meeting in sun-warmed kisses. Yet the call from Ridge Valley came in July, shattering the haze. Mom's voice, thin over the line. "Your father's gone, Hunter. Tomorrow. Come say goodbye." He hung up, face a mask, then crumpled into my arms on the fire escape, the city humming below. "I should have been there. You were," I murmured, holding tight, "in the ways that mattered." The funeral was a study in repression. Black dresses and hushed hymns in the Methodist church, Ridge Valley's finest filing past the casket like extras in a period drama. Hunter stood rigid in a borrowed suit, my hand in his a secret anchor. Claire orchestrated it all. Programs folded just so, eulogy laced with nostalgia for the man who built this town with his hands. Afterward, at the graveside, she pulled him aside under the oaks, her whisper carrying on the wind. I pretended not to hear. "He died thinking you hated him, because of this." A gesture toward me, venomous. He jerked away. "He died knowing I loved him enough to be honest." She scoffed. "Honest? You're a coward. Running to the city, playing pretend." I stepped forward then, voice low. "Let him grieve, Claire." Her eyes raked me. "You, the pretty distraction. How long till he tires of you?" Hunter's arm snaked around my waist. "Forever's a good start." We left that afternoon, the hearse's taillights fading in the rear view, Hunter's grip on the wheel white-knuckled. Back in Seattle, the apartment felt haunted, silences stretching, his touches hesitant. He'd stare at the ceiling at night, whispering, "What if she's right? What if I am running?" "You're living?" I'd counter, tracing his scars. "That's not the same." August brought a commission that saved me. A logo for a queer-owned bookstore in the U District, paying enough for a weekend getaway. I surprised him with tickets to the San Juans, ferries to Friday Harbor where the water lapped turquoise and seals basked on rocks. We rented a cabin on the bluff, no cell service, just the two of us and the tide. It was there, on a driftwood-strewn beach at sunset, that he proposed for real. Down on one knee in the surf, ring pilfered from a pawn shop in Ballard. A simple silver band etched with waves. "Noah Hayes," he said, voice steady as the horizon. "You're my harbor. Marry me." Tears mixed with salt water on my face. Yes, 1,000 times. We celebrated with cheap wine and the universe's light show. Stars wheeling overhead as we loved under the open sky. Bodies slick with sea mist. Felt invincible, a vow etched in the sand. But invincibility is a lie Americans tell themselves. September's equinox storm rolled in fierce, mirroring the one brewing back home. Claire's email arrived while Hunter showered. CC'd to me, a gut punch disguised as concern. Attached photos. Hunter and her post-funeral, in a motel room off I-90. Blurry. Timestamped the night before we left Ridge Valley. He came to me, the note read. "Grief makes monsters of us. Ask him." I confronted him in the bathroom, steam curling like accusations, printouts trembling in my hand. "Tell me this isn't you." His towel slipped, eyes widening in horror. "Noah, it is." Not a question. The evidence was damning. His tattoo peeking from his shoulder, the mole on his hip. He snatched the papers, crumpling them. One night, the funeral. I was wrecked. She was there, offering comfort. I said no, but she pushed you into bed? Sarcasm dripped like venom. Save it. It was a mistake. The biggest. He reached for me, desperate. I came back to you. Chose you. But you keep choosing her. I shouted, voice echoing off tiles. Every secret, every lie. It's her ghost in our bed. He recoiled like I'd struck him. I'm trying. God. I'm trying to be better. Try harder. I stormed out, slamming the bedroom door, curling into the sheets that smelled of us. Hours later, he slipped in, body tentative against mine. I love you, he whispered. Only you. I let him hold me, but the trust was fractured. A mirror with spiderweb cracks. October deepened the divide. Work pulled us apart. Hunter on a high-rise downtown. Me buried in revisions. Nights blurred into arguments laced with exhaustion. Why didn't you tell me about the motel? Because it was nothing. Everything's something if it hurts this much. Claire escalated, mailing a package. Dad's old hammer, wrapped in a note. For the son who builds nothing. Hunter smashed it against the wall, shards flying, then sank to the floor sobbing. I held him through it, but resentment festered. Why did her barbs still pierce him so deep? The climax came mid-month, a Friday night when the power flickered from wind gusts. I cooked lasagna, his favorite, hoping for truce. He came home late, reeking of bourbon, eyes bloodshot. Claire called, said Mom's selling the house, wants me to sign papers. And I plated food, voice neutral. I told her to burn them. He collapsed at the table, forking lasagna without tasting. But she said I'd regret it, that you're turning me into someone I'm not. I set my fork down, heat rising. Am I? Or are you finally seeing who you are? His chair scraped back. Don't. Not tonight. Why not? We can't keep dancing around this. Words tumbled out, years of fear surfacing. I love you, Hunter, but I'm tired of being the villain in your family drama. Tired of picking up pieces from a puzzle I didn't break. He stood, looming. You think I want this? The guilt? The pull? Then cut it. I yelled, standing too. Choose. For real this time. The slap of his hand on the table echoed. I did. Every day. But his eyes, haunted, torn, betrayed him. We slept apart that night, the storm raging outside mirroring the one within. Morning brought fragile peace. Coffee shared in silence, touches tentative. I'm going to therapy, he said suddenly, stirring sugar. Queer Center downtown, starting next week. Relief flooded me. Good. We both should. He nodded, squeezing my hand. Together. Together. November's chill returned, but so did hope. Sessions unearthed Hunter's layers. Childhood beatings disguised as lessons. First crush on the quarterback crushed under prayer circles. Claire was collateral, a beard born of survival. "I'm unlearning," he'd say after, voice lighter. We planned the wedding, small courthouse with friends from the bar scene. Invites went out, RSVPs trickling in like affirmations. But Claire's shadow loomed. A letter arrived, unopened at first. Hunter burned it in the sink, flames licking the edges. "Done," he declared. I believed him, until the night before the ceremony, when my phone buzzed at 2 a.m. unknown number. A voice message. Claire, slurred and sobbing. "He's with me, Noah, at the motel. Said it's over. Come see for yourself." Heart in throat, I dressed, cabbing across the bridge in the pre-dawn gloom. The motel was a dive. Neon sign flickering vacancy. Parking lot pocked with puddles. Room 7's door was cracked, light spilling. Pushed in, breath ragged. Empty bed. Sheets rumpled. Bathroom door ajar. Hunter, slumped against the tub, shirt unbuttoned. Claire nowhere. "Noah." He lurched up, confusion morphing to shame. "What, how?" "Her message." I backed away. "This ends it." "No." He grabbed my wrist. "She lured me here. Fake emergency about Mom. I came to tell her off, but she locked herself in, screaming. I waited for cops. It's not. Stop." Tears choked me. "Just stop." I fled into the night, the city awakening indifferent. Back home, I packed a bag. Essentials, sketches, the ring box unopened. Dawn found me on a Greyhound south, toward Portland, away from the man who'd crawled into my bed and my heart, only to tear it asunder. Portland welcomed me with overcast skies and the scent of rain-soaked evergreens. A sister city to Seattle, but softer around the edges. Food carts steaming on corners. Bookshops stacked to the rafters. A queer scene that pulsed without apology. I crashed with an old college buddy, Elias, in his loft above a vintage vinyl store, the walls vibrating with Bowie and synth waves. "Stay as long as you need," he said, clapping my shoulder, his easy grin a balm. Hearts heal faster with good coffee and better grudges. The first week was survival. Deleting voicemails. Hunters, raw and pleading, "Noah, please, let me explain." Blocking Claire's number after a barrage of taunts. "Told you he'd run home." I threw myself into work, pitching designs to indie labels, the rhythm of my stylus on tablet a metronome against the ache. Nights, I'd walk the bridges over the Willamette, lights fracturing on the water like shattered promises, wondering if love was just a pretty lie we told to endure the cold. Elias dragged me out eventually, to drag shows at the Jupiter, where glittered performers lip-synced heartbreak anthems, to hikes in Forest Park, where ferns carpeted the trails and I'd scream into the void until my throat burned. "You're not broken," he'd say over IPAs at the pub. "Just bent. And damn, you bend pretty." Gratitude swelled for him, uncomplicated and steady, but Hunter haunted the peripheries. Dreams of his weight in my bed, waking sweat slick and hollow. A month in, I caved, unblocking his texts. The flood. Apologies layered like sedimentary rock, each deeper than the last. Therapy's helping. I'm seeing the patterns, the fear. I never meant to hurt you. Photos. Him at group sessions, face earnest. The apartment, tidied, our lighthouse ornament prominent. Waiting. Always. I didn't respond. Couldn't. The betrayal wasn't just the motel. It was the cumulative weight. The secrets. The pull of blood over chosen family. Yet, in quiet moments, sketching by the river, I'd trace outlines of his jaw, the curve of his smile, and wonder if forgiveness was a muscle, atrophied but trainable. Thanksgiving loomed, Portland streets strung with lights, and Elias hosted a potluck. Orphans and wanderers around a table groaning with turkey and pie. I contributed cranberry relish, tart as my mood, and midway through, my phone buzzed under the table. "Hunter, miss you. Every breath. If you're reading this, know I'm fighting for us. For me." Elias caught my expression. X. Complicated. He nodded, wise beyond his barista days. Complicated's just code for worth it, sometimes. December dusted the city in frost, and with it came resolve. I rented a studio in the Pearl District. Tiny, with a skylight framing the stars. Rent steep but mine. Freelance boomed. A queer app startup wanted my vision, deadlines fueling purpose. Christmas Eve. Alone with takeout eggnog and a tree branch propped in a vase. I finally called. Noah. His voice cracked on my name. Background noise, the clink of mugs. Coffee shop. Maybe. Yeah. Pause. Heavy. Merry Christmas. Asobi. Muflid. God, I thought. Don't. Firm but not unkind. We talk. In person. Neutral ground. Portland. No. Halfway. Olympia. New Year's Day. Done. Relief flooded his tone. I'll be there. The drive to Olympia was introspection's gauntlet. Highways flanked by logged hills. Radio crooning folk tales of lost loves. I arrived at the brewpub early, nerves jangling like keys, claiming a corner booth with a view of the door. Hunter walked in at precisely noon, coat dusted with sleet, eyes scanning desperate until they locked on mine. He looked worn, thinner, shadows deeper, but the curl in his hair was the same, tugging at memory. Noah. He slid in opposite, hands clasped like prayer. Thank you. I nodded, signaling the server 2 ambers, frothy heads. Therapy. Twice a week. Groups 2. He sipped, steadying. Learning to own my shit. The running, the hiding. Good. The word was a bridge, tentative. He leaned forward, earnest. The motel, Claire set it up. Texted from mom's phone, said emergency. I went to shut her down, but she barricaded, called the cops on herself, framed it like assault. Cops cleared me, but you were gone by then. I traced the coaster's edge. Why believe her messages now? Because she's broken too. Dad's death twisted her. She wants what we had, or what she thinks we had. Pity flickered, unwelcome. And you? What do you want? You, unhesitating. Us, fixed. The server brought pretzels, salted and warm. We tore into them. The act mundane, grounding. Hours unfolded, stories swapped. My Portland reinvention, his solo holidays with takeout and tears. Laughter crept in, hesitant, when he described burning the Christmas ham. Smelled like victory, tasted like defeat. By dusk, the pub emptied, fairy lights twinkling. Outside, snow flurried soft. I'm sorry, he said again, coat on, breath clouding. For all of it. I know. I stepped close, the space between us electric. Forgiveness isn't erasure. Rebuilding. His hand found mine, gloves off, skin to skin. Can we? Maybe. A kiss, chaste but charged, sealing the maybe. We parted with plans, weekends in Portland, slow merge. Back in my studio, I unpacked the bag I'd never fully settled. The ring box waiting. January thawed the ice. Hunter visited. Train rides filled with banter and hands intertwined. We cooked. Successfully this time, nights blending into mornings, his crawl into my bed tentative, welcomed. But rebuilding tests foundations. Claire resurfaced in February. A certified letter to Hunter. Lawsuit threat, alienation of affection. Citing the engagement ring she'd never returned. Slander, he scoffed, but anxiety etched lines around his eyes. We lawyered up, affordable queer clinic downtown, and countersued for harassment. Court dates loomed, but in the interim we leaned in, therapy together now, dissecting the betrayals like surgeons. I feared losing you to my past, he admitted one session. So I invited it in. And I feared not being enough, I confessed. So I ran. Spring bloomed tentative, cherry trees in Washington Park, picnics under petals. The wedding, postponed, shimmered on the horizon. But Claire's deposition was a grenade, tearful testimony of abuse, painting Hunter as the villain, me the seducer. The judge saw through it, dismissed with prejudice, restraining order slapped on. Victory tasted bittersweet. Hunter's mom attended the hearing, silent in the back row, leaving a note. Proud. Finally. Summer again, and with it, completion. Courthouse steps, June heat waving off the pavement, friends in floral shirts. Vows exchanged. In freezing rooms and crawling dawns, I choose you. Rings slid on, mine etched with harbors, his with waves. The reception was a backyard bash in Portland, fireflies and folk tunes, Elias toasting. To jokes that become truths, Hunter pulled me aside at midnight, under string lights. Every day, he murmured, nuzzling my neck. Into your bed, your life. I smiled, heart full. Every day. Autumn wove gold through the leaves as we settled into marriage, a rhythm as natural as the tides. Seattle called us back. Hunter's foreman gig stabilized. My design firm taking shape in a co-working space overlooking Elliott Bay. The apartment evolved. Bookshelves groaning with shared reads. A king bed to accommodate his sprawl. Photos pinned to the fridge. Us on Orcus, grinning salt-crusted. A candid from the wedding, his hand on my knee, eyes soft with forever. But marriage isn't a finish line. It's a horizon, ever receding. Claire's shadow lingered in therapy echoes, in Hunter's occasional flinches at family mentions. His mom visited once. Awkward tea in the kitchen, her hug to me tentative but thawing. You make him shine, she said, eyes misty. No word from Ridge Valley kin, but the silence was permission, a space to build without ghosts. Winter's chill tested us anew, the boiler acting up, ironic echo of our start. Hunter crawled in that first cold night, grinning. Habit die hard? I pulled him close. Best one we've got. Deeper currents stirred, though. Hunter's dreams turned restless, nightmares of falling beams, of Dad's casket splintering. What if I'm not enough? He'd murmur post-panic, sweat damp in my arms. You're everything, I'd affirm, but doubt crept reciprocal. My firm landed a big client LA startup demanding travel. Weeks in California sun, while Hunter hammered steel under gray skies. Calls bridged the gap. Miss your laugh, he'd say. Miss your hands. Reunions were fire, airport dashes, bodies colliding in hotel lobbies. But distance amplifies fissures. A voicemail from Elias, casual. Saw a guy who looked like your hubs at that dive in Capitol Hill. Nah, wrong guy. Paranoia bloomed, old wounds suppurating. I confronted Hunter on a video call, pixels blurring his flinch. Elias saw you at a bar? Work drinks. Defensive. Why? Just be honest. I am. Hurt flickered. Always now. Trust rebuilt is fragile glass. One crack, and light refracts strange. March brought the quake. Anonymous email to my work, screenshots, Hunter at that bar, arm around a guy, younger, laughing. Time-stamped last week. I flew home early, rage a passenger. The apartment was dark, Hunter out. I waited, stewing, until keys jangled at 2 a.m. He froze in the doorway, sensing the storm. Noah? You're back. Who's Kyle? The name from the caption spat like bile. His face fell. Coworker. Rough day. We talked. Nothing. Arm around him says different. I thrust the phone at him, images glaring. He scrolled, paling. This is edited. Look, shadows wrong. Claire. Has to be. Doubt ward with evidence. Again? Her. We hired a PI, overkill but necessary. Findings. Deepfakes, traced to a burner in Ridge Valley. Claire. Unrepentant in deposition redux. I wanted him to hurt like I did. The restraining order upgraded to no contact. Therapy doubled down. Patterns repeat till broken, our counselor said. Hunter owned his part. I leaned on the bar too much. Lonely without you. And I jumped to worst case, I admitted. Old fears. Forged stronger, we emerged. Vows renewed in a quiet ceremony at Discovery Park. Just us and the sea. Summer hummed with projects. Hunter apprenticing welders, mentoring queer kids from the center. Me launching a line of Pride merch, proceeds to housing funds. Fall deepened, leaves carpeting the paths where we'd first walked as more than roommates. One evening, rain pattering, Hunter knelt by the window, a new box in hand. Not a redo, he said, opening to reveal intertwined bands, waves and harbors merged. An addendum to every day. Tears pricked. Yes, that night he crawled in, body familiar, heart open. We loved slow, whispers of gratitude, the world outside fading to irrelevance. Years blurred, promotions, a down payment on a house in Fremont turf yard, skylights for stargazing. Hunter's scars faded to stories, shared at support groups. Mine to art, canvases of abstract longing sold in galleries. Claire vanished, remarried in Ridge Valley, a footnote. On our 5th anniversary, Seattle's lights twinkled from our porch, Hunter's head on my shoulder. From a joke to this, he mused. Best punchline. I kissed him, tasting home. Life's not fairy tale. Bills stack, arguments flare, health scares whisper. But in the freezing rooms of doubt, we crawl back, choosing compassion over chains. Freedom isn't absence of storm. It's the harbor we build, arms open, every dawn. In the end, love's the truest rebellion. Against fear, against scripts, against the cold that once drove us together. And in each other's bed, we find not just warmth, but the audacity to dream unbound.